Mary Throssett wakes up from anesthesia expecting to see her dream body. Instead, she wakes up with something inside her she never agreed to, something tracking her every move. A GPS device, implanted by her surgeon, hidden beneath her skin where she'd never think to look. But Mary is one of the lucky ones, because when FBI agents raid Dr. Vincent McCarthy's Beverly Hills clinic 6 months later, they discover something that makes even seasoned investigators go silent. 17 women, all with tracking devices buried in their bodies, all being monitored without their knowledge, all being watched, hunted. Dr. Vincent wasn't just a plastic surgeon. He was a recruiter for an international trafficking network worth $47 million. He was selling women, real-time location data, home addresses, daily routines, when they were alone, when they were vulnerable. Mary's profile had already been sold to buyers in 3 different countries. The acquisition team was being assembled. She had 2 weeks, maybe less. 41 other women weren't as fortunate. They vanished. No goodbye, no trace, just gone. And the most disturbing part? Some of them are still out there right now, still missing, still waiting for someone to find them. What happens when the person you trust with your body uses that trust to destroy your life? What happens when a doctor's oath becomes a hunting license? Over the next hour, you're going to hear how one woman's dream of transformation became a nightmare of surveillance and betrayal, how a decorated military veteran built an empire on violated flesh, and how close Mary came to becoming just another missing person no one could explain. The truth is worse than you think, and it starts with a simple decision one woman made on a warm spring morning in Charleston.
Mary Throssett is 32 years old when this story begins. A pediatric nurse at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. The kind of person who works double shifts without complaint because kids need her. The kind who remembers birthdays and brings homemade cookies to the break room. But Mary has spent most of her adult life at war with her own reflection. She'd been overweight since childhood. By her mid-20s, she's carrying 260 pounds on a 5'5" frame. Every diet fails. Every program quits on her before she can quit on it. Until 2017. Something shifts. She stops fighting her body and starts working with it. She hires a nutritionist, finds a trainer who doesn't judge, commits to the slow, unglamorous process of real change. Over 3 years, she loses 120 pounds. Through sweat, through discipline, through showing up even when her body screams at her to stop. She runs her first marathon in 2019. She lifts weights 4 days a week. She transforms herself into someone strong, someone capable, someone proud. But her skin doesn't cooperate. When you lose that much weight, the skin doesn't always bounce back. It hangs. Loose folds on her arms, her thighs, her stomach. A reminder of who she used to be, even though she's worked so hard to become someone new. It bothers her, not out of vanity, but because when she looks in the mirror, the outside still doesn't match the inside. So she starts saving. Every spare dollar from those double shifts goes into an account. She lives in a tiny studio apartment in West LA, drives a 15-year-old Honda with a cracked windshield, skips vacations, skips restaurants, skips everything that isn't essential. 7 years of saving. 7 years of discipline extending beyond the gym into every corner of her life. By March 2023, she finally has it. $95,000. Enough for complete body transformation. A lower body lift, a breast lift, an arm lift. Everything she needs to finally feel at home in her own skin. Now she just needs the right surgeon. Someone skilled, someone trustworthy, someone who won't see her as just another procedure, but as a person who's earned this. She spends 3 months researching, reading hundreds of reviews, checking credentials with the medical board, looking at before and after photos until her eyes blur. She's not going to rush this, not after 7 years of waiting. And that's how she finds Dr. Vincent McCarthy. On paper, Dr. Vincent McCarthy looks perfect. Board certified by the American Board of Plastic Surgery, Johns Hopkins graduate, class of 1982, residency at Cedars-Sinai, one of the most respected hospitals in the country, 20 years of active practice, published research in 3 major aesthetic surgery journals. His Instagram shows transformations that look natural, not overdone. Real women with real results, not celebrities, not models, just people who look happy, confident, healed. 543 reviews across multiple platforms, 5 stars on nearly all of them. Patients use words like life-changing and miracle worker and finally feel like myself. He has clinics in Beverly Hills and Miami. Both look more like luxury spas than medical facilities. Soft lighting, eucalyptus-scented air, robes thicker than hotel blankets. Rumor says celebrities use him, though he's too professional to name them. That discretion makes him seem even more legitimate. He's not chasing fame, he's focused on his work. Mary calls his Beverly Hills office on March 8, 2023. Books a consultation for the following Tuesday. The consultation exceeds every expectation. Dr. Vincent is in his mid-40s, distinguished but approachable, gray at the temples, kind eyes that actually make contact when he speaks. He doesn't rush her. He listens as she explains her journey, the weight loss, the discipline, the years of saving, the desire to finally feel complete. He tells her she's done incredible work, that most people can't accomplish what she has, that she should be proud. He makes her feel seen, understood, valued. He pulls up 3D imaging software and shows her what the results could look like. He explains each procedure in detail, never condescending, always checking if she has questions. The lower body lift will remove excess skin from her abdomen and thighs, create smooth, natural contours. The breast lift will restore shape without implants. The arm lift will eliminate the loose skin she's been hiding under long sleeves for years. He looks her in the eyes and says, I can give you exactly what you want. You've put in the work. Now let me help you see those results. The price is $95,000, every penny she saved. But he offers a payment plan that makes it manageable. $50,000 down, the rest over 12 months at 0 interest. More importantly, she trusts him. After 3 months of research, after meeting him in person, after seeing his work and hearing his words, she feels safe. She schedules surgery for June 15th, 2023. She walks out of his office feeling like her life is finally coming together, like all those years of sacrifice are about to pay off, like she's finally going to feel whole. She has no idea she's just handed herself over to a predator. Because Dr. Vincent McCarthy isn't who he appears to be. His perfect credentials are real. His surgical skills are genuine. But behind the white coat and the kind eyes is something dark, something patient, something that's been waiting.
June 14th, 2023. The day before everything changes. Mary checks into the recovery facility attached to Dr. Vincent's Beverly Hills clinic at 2 in the afternoon. She's nervous, excited, ready. The facility surprises her. It's not clinical at all. Soft music plays through hidden speakers. The air smells like lavender. Her private room has a queen bed with actual pillows, not the flat hospital kind. A menu sits on the nightstand, offering meals from an actual chef. This is what $95,000 buys. Not just surgery, an experience. She meets other patients in the common area. Jennifer had a breast augmentation 3 days ago. Stephanie's recovering from a tummy tuck 2 weeks out. Both women glow when they talk about Dr. Vincent. Jennifer shows Mary her results. "Look how natural these look. I was terrified they'd look fake, but he knew exactly what would work for my frame." Stephanie nods enthusiastically. "I'm already back in jeans I haven't worn in 10 years. Best money I ever spent. You're in incredible hands." Everyone loves him. Everyone heals beautifully. Everyone walks away happy. Mary's nervousness fades. She's in the right place, with the right doctor. That evening, she FaceTimes her sister Emily in Chicago. Emily is the only family she has left after their parents died in a car accident 5 years ago. They talk about the surgery, about how this moment has been 7 years in the making, about what Mary will look like when the bandages finally come off. Emily tells her she'll love her no matter what. Mary says she knows. They laugh about something small and meaningless. They say, "I love you." They make plans to talk tomorrow after surgery. That's the last normal conversation Mary will ever have with her sister. The last time her voice sounds light and hopeful. The last moment before her life splits into before and after. She hangs up, sets her alarm for 6 a.m., tries to sleep, but her mind races with anticipation. At 6:15, she gives up and showers. At 6:45, she puts on the hospital gown they left for her. At 7 a.m. sharp, a nurse knocks. "Ready?" Mary nods. "Ready." She walks down the corridor toward the operating room. Her heart pounds, but not from fear, from excitement. This is it, the moment she's worked toward for 7 years. The moment everything changes. She's right about that, but not in the way she thinks. The operating room is exactly what you'd expect. Bright lights, steel instruments arranged on trays, the smell of antiseptic sharp in the air. Dr. Vincent is already there, masked and gloved. Dr. Patricia Moss, the anesthesiologist, greets her with a warm smile. Mary lies on the table. Dr. Moss inserts the IV. Dr. Vincent comes over and squeezes her hand. "You're going to do great. When you wake up, everything will be different. Better. I promise." The anesthesia flows cool through her veins. Dr. Moss tells her to count backward from 10. 10, 9, 8, 7. Dr. Vincent's eyes are the last thing she sees before the world goes dark. The surgery is supposed to take 8 hours. It takes 11. According to the surgical notes, there are unexpected complications requiring additional procedures. Everything looks normal on paper. Professional. Thorough. Standard. But something else happens in that operating room. Something that isn't documented anywhere. While Mary sleeps, while her body is open and vulnerable, while she trusts him completely, Dr. Vincent makes an incision that isn't in the surgical plan. Small, precise, on her lower back, just above her left hip. Hidden by clothing, easy to dismiss. He creates a pocket in the subcutaneous tissue, just big enough. The device is 2 centimeters long. Cylindrical, encased in surgical-grade silicone so her body won't reject it. Smooth enough to heal into the surrounding tissue without obvious problems. It's a GPS tracker. Military grade. Battery life of 5 to 7 years. Capable of transmitting real-time location data to anyone who has the access code. Dr. Vincent has done this 17 times before Mary. He's fast, efficient. The additional incision takes less than 10 minutes. He closes it with neat stitches that will heal cleanly. Dr. Moss monitors vitals throughout. She has no idea what he's doing. The incision looks like part of the larger procedure. When Mary wakes up hours later,
she'll have no idea what's inside her. No idea she's being tracked. No idea her information is already being compiled into a dossier for buyers who specialize in women exactly like her. No idea that the man she trusted with her body has just turned her into merchandise. Mary opened her eyes at 8:30 that evening. The world felt distant, underwater. Medication wrapped around her thoughts like fog. She tried to focus, but the room kept sliding sideways. Pain cut through the haze, deep, aching, radiating across her entire midsection, her chest, her arms. Everything hurt in ways she didn't know were possible. But that was normal, wasn't it? This was major surgery. Of course it hurt. A nurse appeared beside her immediately. Told her she did great. Mary tried to speak, but her mouth felt full of cotton. She managed one word. Hurts. The nurse reassured her. Pain medication was already running through her IV. Just rest now. The room slowly came into focus. Private recovery suite. Dim lighting. Machines beeping softly. She was wrapped tight in compression garments and bandages. Couldn't see anything. Couldn't assess results. Just felt pressure and pain. Dr. Vincent visited around 9, still in his scrubs. He looked tired but satisfied. Told her everything went perfectly, better than expected. The results were going to be beautiful. She was going to be so happy. He squeezed her hand gently, told her to rest, said he'd check on her in the morning. Mary drifted in and out for the next several hours. Medication kept her floating. Time became meaningless. She'd close her eyes, and when she opened them again, hours had passed. Or maybe minutes. She couldn't tell. For the first 3 days, it continued like this. Heavy medication, floating consciousness, nurses checking vitals, helping her to the bathroom, adjusting compression garments, bringing soft foods. Pain was intense, but manageable. Expected. Everyone told her she was healing beautifully. Everything looked perfect. She was right on track. She couldn't see the results yet. Everything was wrapped, compressed, hidden. She trusted them. She trusted Dr. Vincent. That trust was about to shatter.
Day 4 arrived, and they reduced her medication. Her head started to clear. The fog lifted enough for her to actually think straight, to notice things. She was lying in bed, trying to get comfortable, when she saw it. A small incision on her lower abdomen. Low, almost at her bikini line, but off to the side, not centered. She stared at it, confused. Tried to remember the diagrams Dr. Vincent had shown her during consultation. The incision points were supposed to follow her natural creases. This one didn't. This one was wrong. When Lisa, the surgical coordinator, checked on her that afternoon, Mary pointed it out. Lisa glanced at it briefly and explained that Dr. Vincent sometimes needed additional access points. Every surgery was different once he was actually working. He made adjustments based on what he found. That's why he was so good. He wasn't just following a template. The explanation made sense, sort of. But something about it still felt off. Day 5 brought shower privileges. The hot water felt incredible after days of sponge baths. A nurse helped her stay steady. Mary's hand brushed against something on her lower back. A small, raised area, just above her left hip. Hard, defined, about the size of a large vitamin. She pressed on it gently. Didn't hurt, but definitely felt wrong, like something solid was sitting just beneath her skin. She asked the nurse about it, guided the woman's hand to the spot. The nurse felt it, expression briefly puzzled, then smiled. Probably just swelling and scar tissue, totally normal after extensive surgery. Body was healing and sometimes tissue got lumpy during repair. It would go down over the next few weeks. Mary wanted to ask more questions, wanted to push. But the nurse had done this hundreds of times. She would know. The unease didn't leave, though. Over the next few days, Mary kept touching that spot, feeling it, waiting for it to go down like promised. It didn't.
stayed the same size, same shape, hard and defined beneath her skin. Then she noticed something else, something strange.
Late at night, when everything was quiet, and she was lying still, she felt it vibrating. Just barely. So subtle she wondered if her mind was playing tricks. It wasn't her heartbeat. Wasn't her imagination. A tiny, rhythmic pulse, like a phone buzzing in another room. Distant, but definitely there. She pressed her fingers against the spot and held her breath, trying to isolate the sensation. There. Felt it again. Faint vibration, lasting maybe 2 seconds before stopping. She called for the night nurse, a different woman, someone new. She tried to explain, knew it sounded crazy, thought she could feel something vibrating under her skin. Could the nurse check? The nurse placed her hand on the area, waited. Didn't feel anything vibrating. Explained that after surgery, nerves did weird things while healing. Probably nerve misfires. Pretty common, actually. But there was definitely something hard there, Mary insisted. Scar tissue formation, the nurse repeated. But they'd make sure Dr. Vincent looked at it. The vibration kept happening. Random times. Early morning. Late night. Brief pulses lasting just seconds. Mary started wondering if she was losing her mind. Was medication making her paranoid? Was this all in her head? But she knew her body. Something felt fundamentally wrong. She told herself she'd wait until follow-up appointment. Dr. Vincent would explain. He'd reassure her. Everything would make sense. Deep down, though, somewhere she didn't want to acknowledge yet, a small voice whispered that this wasn't normal, that something had happened on that operating room, something she hadn't agreed to. She just didn't know what yet.
2 weeks post-op, Mary was finally cleared to go home. The surgical results were stunning. When they removed bandages and she saw herself in the mirror for the first time, tears filled her eyes. Dr. Vincent had delivered. Her abdomen was smooth and flat. Breasts had natural, youthful shape, arms looked toned and defined. No loose skin, no awkward folds, just clean lines. She looked the way she'd always imagined. Outside, finally matched inside. For a moment, she forgot about the strange lump, forgot about vibrations. She was just overwhelmed with happiness. But when she got home to her studio apartment, unease returned. That lump on her lower back was still there, still hard, still wrong. Vibrations were happening more frequently now, or maybe she was just more aware without the distraction of the recovery facility. She called the clinic, asked to speak with Dr. Vincent. He was traveling, they told her. Medical conference, back in 3 days. Could she wait? She tried, really did. But by day 16 post-op, she couldn't take it anymore. Wasn't sleeping, couldn't stop touching the spot, couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. She called her primary care physician, Dr. Sarah Kwan. They'd known each other 5 years. If anyone would take her seriously, it was Dr. Kwan. She explained the situation, the surgery, the lump, the vibrations no one else seemed to feel. Dr. Kwan told her to come in today. She'd fit her in. 2 hours later, Mary sat on an exam table while Dr. Kwan examined the area. Dr. Kwan's fingers pressed gently against the lump. Once. Twice. Expression shifted from curious to concerned. She told Mary this shouldn't be here. Too defined. Too solid. Not scar tissue. Mary's chest tightened. Asked what it was then. Dr. Kwan didn't know, but they needed to find out. Ordering an ultrasound right now. They had a machine there, could do it today. 20 minutes later, Mary lay on her side. Ultrasound technician ran the probe over her lower back. Technician stared at screen. Expression changed from focused to confused
to alarmed. She stopped, set down probe, said she needed to get Dr. Kwan. Mary asked what it was. What was wrong? Technician didn't answer, just left quickly. Mary's heart started racing. Something was wrong, really wrong. Dr. Kwan returned within minutes, took over ultrasound herself, moved probe slowly, carefully, examining image from multiple angles. Mary watched Dr. Kwan's face go pale. Dr. Kwan told her there was a foreign object implanted in her subcutaneous tissue. The room tilted. Mary asked what she meant. There was something in there that shouldn't be there. Dr. Kwan pointed to screen, showing small, bright white shape embedded in tissue layers, about 2 centimeters long, encased in what looked like surgical-grade silicone, deliberately placed there. Mary couldn't breathe, didn't understand. Why would Dr. Vincent put something in her? Dr. Kwan made it clear this wasn't surgical equipment left behind by accident. This was intentionally implanted. They needed to remove it immediately and find out what it was.
Dr. Kwan performed the removal that same day. Local anesthetic numbed the area. Small, precise incision, careful dissection through tissue layers. Then she was holding it, a small, cylindrical device, smooth, metallic, encased in clear, flexible silicone. About the size of a pill. No markings, no serial numbers, nothing to identify it. Dr. Kwan placed it in a sterile container, stared at it like it was something from another planet. Whispered, "What the hell is this?" She called a colleague immediately, Dr. Julian West, specialized in medical devices, had worked with military on advanced equipment. He was at nearby hospital, agreed to come over right away. Within an hour, Dr. West sat in Dr. Kwan's office, examining device under magnification. Turned it over, studied it from every angle. Mary sat there, hands shaking, watching him work. Finally, he looked up. Told them it was a tracking device. GPS-enabled. Long-life battery, probably good for 5 to 7 years. Military or high-end surveillance-grade equipment. Civilian tracking devices didn't look like this. Professional. Expensive. According to Dr. West, someone had implanted this deliberately. Mary felt blood drain from her face, processing what this meant. Dr. Vincent had put a GPS tracker inside her body. Dr. West confirmed it. Beyond medical ethics violation, this was criminal. She needed to call police right now. Dr. Kwan already had phone out. By 7 p.m., 2 LAPD detectives sat in Dr. Kwan's office. Detective Vanessa Collier and Detective Richard Cole. Both seasoned. Both staring at tracking device with grim expressions. Detective Vanessa took Mary's statement. Asked if Dr. Vincent had mentioned anything about implanting devices during consent process. Mary was clear. Nothing. She'd signed consent forms for lower body lift, breast lift, arm lift. That's it. Nothing about putting anything inside her. When Vanessa asked about noticing it during recovery, Mary explained. Didn't notice until 4 days post-op. Felt a lump, but nurses said scar tissue. Then started feeling vibrations. That's when she knew something was wrong. Detective Cole asked about the vibrations. Wanted her to describe them. Mary explained, laid it out mostly. Little pulses. That's what made her certain it wasn't just scar tissue.
The two detectives exchanged a look. Vanessa explained that GPS trackers pinged periodically to update location. What Mary had felt was probably the device transmitting data. Mary asked the obvious question. Transmitting to who? That's what they needed to find out, Cole told her. He said they needed to contact Dr. Vincent immediately. Vanessa called his office, got his assistant. Dr. Vincent wasn't available, had left for medical conference in Dubai 3 days ago. Would be back next week. Vanessa called the conference directly, asked if Dr. Vincent McCarthy was registered. The answer sent chills through everyone in room. No. No record of Dr. Vincent McCarthy registered for their conference. Never heard of him. Dr. Vincent had lied about where he was going, left country under false pretenses. Now he was gone. Detective Cole's expression hardened, said they needed a warrant for his patient records right now. If he'd done this to Mary, might have done it to others. Mary's voice came out small, asked if they thought there were other women with these things inside them. Cole told her they needed to find out, fast. As detectives left to begin investigation, Mary sat alone with Dr. Kwan. Tracking device sat in its sterile container on desk between them. Someone had been watching her, monitoring every move, knowing where she was at all times. For 2 weeks, she'd been completely exposed without knowing it. But why? What did Dr. Vincent want with her location? What was he planning? Think about that for a moment. A doctor you trusted with your body, a man you paid $95,000, a surgeon with perfect credentials and glowing reviews. He opened you up and put a tracking device inside you while you slept. The answers were about to prove even more horrifying than the device itself, because Mary was about to discover she wasn't just a victim. She was merchandise. And Dr. Vincent McCarthy had been in the business of selling women for years.
Detective Vanessa didn't waste time. By 9 the next morning, she had a warrant for Dr. Vincent's patient records. What she found made this case explode into something nobody expected. Over the past 3 years, Dr. Vincent had performed surgery on 143 patients, mostly women, mostly cosmetic procedures, body lifts, breast augmentations, liposuction, tummy tucks. Vanessa started calling them, one by one. Simple question for each. After your surgery with Dr. Vincent, did you experience any unusual symptoms, any hard lumps or strange sensations? The first 5 patients said no. Everything healed normally, beautiful results, no complaints. The 6th patient paused. Actually, yeah, she said. There was this weird lump on her upper thigh. She'd asked Dr. Vincent about it during follow-up, and he'd told her it was scar tissue that would go down eventually. 8 months later, it was still there. Vanessa felt her pulse quicken, asked if she'd had it checked by another doctor. No, Dr. Vincent had said it was normal, so she'd figured. Vanessa told her she needed an ultrasound today, as soon as possible. By end of day, Vanessa had identified 17 patients who reported the same thing, hard lumps in unexpected locations, lower back, upper thigh, lower abdomen, places hidden by clothing, places easy to dismiss. Most had asked Dr. Vincent about it. He'd reassured every single one. Scar tissue, swelling, nothing to worry about. None of them had it checked by another doctor because they'd trusted him. Vanessa coordinated with all 17 patients immediately, told them she believed Dr. Vincent may have implanted something without their consent, asked them to get ultrasounds. Over the next 72 hours, 13 of the 17 patients got scanned. Every single one had an identical tracking device implanted.
13 women, ages 28 to 45, all unknowingly carrying GPS trackers in their bodies, all being monitored without their knowledge. Detective Cole stared at the board in the investigation room where he'd pinned photos of all 14 victims, Mary and 13 others. All attractive, all successful, all violated in the most invasive way imaginable. He said it out loud. Why? What's the end game? Why track these women?
Vanessa shook her head, said she didn't know, but they needed to find out before something worse happened. Because the tracking devices meant Dr. Vincent knew where these women were at all times, knew their routines, their addresses, when they were home, when they were alone. He was monitoring them for a reason, and whatever that reason was, it couldn't be good. Neighbors began speaking in hushed tones about Dr. Vincent, about how professional he'd seemed, about how his wife must be devastated, about how you never really knew someone. Teachers who'd worked with some of the victims described them as capable women, independent, successful, the kind who seemed to have their lives together. According to witnesses who knew Dr. Vincent from the marina where he kept a small boat, he'd been friendly but private. Never shared much about his personal life. Just showed up, did maintenance work, and left. What kind of man does this? What kind of surgeon violates trust so completely?
Detective Cole spent the next day building profiles on all 14 victims. He spread their information across the conference room cable looking for connections. The pattern emerged quickly. Too quickly. All 14 women were single or recently divorced. Not one had children. They all had successful careers with six-figure incomes, software engineers, marketing executives, real estate agents, finance managers. They all lived alone. No roommates, no partners. And here's what made Cole's blood run cold. Every single one had relocated to California within the past 2 years from other states, other cities. They were new to the area. That meant no established support networks, no close family nearby, no childhood friends around the corner. They were isolated, vulnerable, perfect targets for someone with bad intentions. One more detail stood out. All 14 had paid for their surgeries in cash or cashier's checks. No credit cards, no payment plans that would create paper trails linking them to family members or banks. This wasn't random selection. Dr. Vincent had chosen these women carefully, deliberately. Vanessa looked at the profiles and felt sick, told Cole this was a hunting operation. The FBI was brought in that afternoon. This crossed state lines. Several victims had traveled from other states specifically for surgery with Dr. Vincent. That made it federal.
Special Agent Victoria Scott arrived within hours. She'd worked trafficking and organized crime for 15 years, had seen things that would break most people. But when she looked at the victim profiles, even she felt a chill. She told them these women fit the profile for high-value trafficking targets. Educated, attractive, financially stable, no close local ties. In certain international markets, women like this were worth serious money. Mary was sitting in the FBI field office when Agent Scott said this. Felt the room tilt. Asked if Scott thought he'd been planning to kidnap them. Traffic them. Scott met her eyes. Said she thought those trackers were intelligence gathering, learning routines, building profiles. The question was whether he was planning to take them himself or selling the information to someone else who would. Mary whispered, "Oh my God." Scott told her that just because they'd removed her tracker didn't mean she was safe. If he'd sold her information already, buyers might still come. They needed to put her in protective custody. Mary's hands started shaking. This couldn't be real. She'd just wanted to feel good about herself. She'd researched. She'd been careful. How had this happened? Remember that consultation back in March when Dr. Vincent made her feel seen, understood, valued? That wasn't kindness. That was assessment.
He was evaluating whether she fit his criteria, whether she'd be worth the effort. And she'd passed his test.
FBI cyber forensics tore apart Dr. Vincent's digital life. Every device, every account, every hidden file. What they found painted a picture of a man living two completely separate lives. On the surface, accomplished surgeon, family man, pillar of the community. In the shadows, something far darker. Encrypted communications with unknown parties, Bitcoin transactions totaling $12.4 million over 3 years, access to dark web marketplaces where human tracking data was bought and sold like stocks. Dr. Vincent had been selling his patients information, real-time location data, home addresses, daily routines, work schedules, when they were alone, when they traveled, complete dossiers on each woman. Agent Scott sat in the forensics lab, reading through recovered communications, jaw tight. She said he wasn't working alone. These messages referenced a network, other providers, multiple buyers across different countries. They traced his Bitcoin transactions to accounts in Eastern Europe, Southeast Asia, and the Middle East. Money came from shell companies and encrypted wallets designed to hide the real buyers. This wasn't some lone predator. This was organized, professional, international. And Dr. Vincent was just one piece of a much larger operation. According to court documents later unsealed, investigators found detailed spreadsheets on his encrypted laptop. Patient names, dates of surgery, physical descriptions, employment information, home addresses, daily schedules compiled from weeks of tracking data. Next to each name was a dollar amount, ranging from $50,000 to $250,000. The highest values were assigned to women like Mary, single, no children, professional careers, no local family, recently relocated. Police reports described finding correspondence with buyers who specified exactly what they were looking for: age range, education level, physical characteristics, professional background, even personality traits gleaned from social media profiles. Dr. Vincent wasn't just tracking women randomly. He was fulfilling orders.
Forensic analysis showed he'd been taking screenshots of his patients' social media accounts, Facebook posts about weekend plans, Instagram stories showing them alone at coffee shops, LinkedIn updates about work travel. He'd been studying them, learning their lives, building comprehensive profiles that would help buyers plan acquisitions that looked like random disappearances. The FBI discovered he'd been doing this for at least 5 years, maybe longer. And Mary had only scratched the surface. Agent Scott and Detective Vanessa drove to the Hollywood Hills to interview Diane McCarthy. The mansion was exactly what you'd expect: modern architecture, infinity pool, panoramic views of Los Angeles, the kind of place that screamed success and stability. Diane answered the door looking exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back messily. She'd aged 10 years in the past week. She told them to please come in. They sat in a living room that looked like something from an architecture magazine. Expensive furniture, original artwork, family photos on the mantel showing a happy, perfect family. All of it was a lie. Scott told Diane they needed to ask questions about her husband. Diane said immediately that she didn't know where he was. She'd tried calling. His phone went straight to voicemail. She didn't understand what was happening. Vanessa asked when she'd last spoken to him. The morning he left for Dubai. He'd kissed her goodbye, told her he'd be back in a week. That was it. Vanessa asked if he'd seemed nervous, distracted, different in any way.
Diane thought for a moment. Said no. He'd seemed normal. Maybe a little rushed, but he was always rushed. Scott pulled out her tablet, showed Diane photos of the tracking devices, told her that her husband had implanted these in 14 women without their consent. He'd been monitoring them, selling their information to buyers overseas. Diane stared at the screen, face going pale. Said that wasn't possible. James would never. He was a doctor. He helped people.
Scott told her they had the evidence, his communications, his Bitcoin transactions, the devices themselves. This was real. Diane's hands started to shake. She covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Said she didn't understand. Why would he do this? That's what they were trying to find out, Vanessa told her. Asked if he'd seemed different lately. Any changes in behavior. Diane said he'd been traveling more. Medical conferences, he'd told her. But now she didn't know if that was true. And money. They'd had money, more than usual. He'd bought expensive things, new cars, a watch that cost $40,000. She'd thought business was just good. Scott asked if she had access to his financial records. Diane pulled out her phone with trembling hands, said they had separate accounts mostly, but there was a joint savings account. She'd check. She pulled up her banking app, then froze. Vanessa asked what it was. Diane told them the savings account had $340,000. It was empty. Everything was gone. Transferred out 3 days before he left. The room went silent. He'd cleaned them out. Taken everything. Disappeared with money that was supposed to secure his children's future. Diane looked up, eyes hollow, asked what she was supposed to tell her kids. How she was supposed to explain that their father was a monster. Scott didn't have an answer for that. There was no good answer. They left Diane sitting in her perfect mansion with her perfect life shattered around her. 3 kids who would grow up knowing their father was a predator. A woman who'd spent 20 years married to someone she'd never really known. Back in the car, Vanessa said what they were both thinking. He'd planned this. Months in advance. Maybe longer. This wasn't impulse. This was calculated. Scott nodded grimly. Said the communications they'd found referenced ongoing operations. Active monitoring. He had partners still out there doing the same thing. They needed to find him, Vanessa said. Scott agreed, but first they needed to figure out how deep this network went, because she thought they'd only scratched the surface.
What they didn't know yet was that Dr. Vincent wasn't just part of a network. He was one of the founders. And the operation he'd helped build was far more extensive and far more horrifying than anyone imagined. Mary and the 13 other women weren't just in danger. They were already marked, already sold, already scheduled for acquisition, and time was running out. What would you do if you discovered someone had been watching you for weeks, tracking your every move, selling your information to people who wanted to hurt you? Think about that. Because for 14 women, that nightmare was real, and some of them wouldn't make it out alive.
FBI cyber forensics finally cracked Dr. Vincent's encrypted communications. What they found made this case international news. Dr. Vincent wasn't just a rogue surgeon. He was part of a sophisticated network of corrupt medical professionals across North America, providing what they called merchandise acquisition services to human trafficking syndicates. But this wasn't street-level trafficking. This was boutique, high-end, specialized trafficking catering to billionaires and criminals who paid premium prices for specific types of women. The tracking devices weren't for immediate kidnapping. They were for long-term monitoring, building comprehensive profiles that could be sold to buyers looking for particular characteristics.
The buyers would then arrange their own acquisitions using the data to plan abductions that appeared to be random disappearances. Agent Scott sat in the command center at FBI headquarters, reading through the decrypted files with growing horror. Dr. Vincent wasn't the only one. The FBI identified 4 other plastic surgeons, 2 cosmetic dentists, and 3 dermatologists across the U.S. and Canada involved in the scheme. All were implanting trackers in patients who fit certain profiles. Over the past 5 years, 89 women had been implanted with devices. 41 of them had vanished without a trace over the subsequent months. Their locations had simply stopped transmitting. The FBI suspected they'd been taken to countries where the devices didn't work or the trackers had been removed after abduction. According to investigators, the network operated like a dark market. Medical professionals would identify suitable candidates during consultations. They'd assess financial status, family connections, support networks. If a patient fit the profile, she'd be tagged during surgery. The tracking would begin immediately. Data was compiled for weeks or months. Movement patterns, work schedules, social habits, security vulnerabilities. Once a complete profile was built, it would be listed on an encrypted marketplace. Buyers could browse based on specific criteria: age, education, appearance, profession, location. Prices varied. Women with no children and no close family commanded higher prices. Professional women with advanced degrees were considered premium merchandise. Recent transplants to new cities were valued for their isolation.
Mary's profile had been listed 3 weeks after her surgery. Price: $185,000. Her listing included photos taken from her social media accounts, her work schedule compiled from tracking data, her home address, even the route she walked to the nearby coffee shop every Sunday morning. She'd been purchased by a buyer in Dubai on June 28, 2023, just 13 days after her surgery. The acquisition had been scheduled for late July. A team was being assembled, travel arrangements made. If she hadn't felt that vibration, if she hadn't gone to Dr. Kwan when she did, she would have disappeared within 2 weeks. Scott stared at the screen showing Mary's listing, at the cold, clinical language describing a human being like she was property. This was what Dr. Vincent did. This was his side business, his real income stream. The surgical fees were just cover. The real money came from selling women. For the next 3 days, the investigation expanded rapidly. International law enforcement agencies were notified. Interpol issued alerts. The other medical professionals in the network were identified and placed under surveillance. But Dr. Vincent was still in the wind, still out there, still dangerous. And the 14 women whose devices had been found weren't safe just because the trackers were gone. Their information was already out there, already sold. Buyers might already be watching them through other means. The FBI moved all 14 women into protective custody. They were scattered across different safe houses, given new phones with secure communications, and assigned protection details. Mary sat in a hotel room in an undisclosed location, struggling to process everything. 2 federal marshals stood guard outside her door. Her entire life had been turned upside down. She'd thought she was getting cosmetic surgery, thought she was finally going to feel complete. Instead, she'd been tagged like livestock, monitored like prey, sold to a stranger who wanted to do God knows what with her. Think about that violation. Not just physical, not just the device in her body, but the knowledge that every moment of privacy she'd thought she had over the past weeks had been an illusion. Someone had been watching. Someone had been planning. Someone had already paid for her.
3 weeks into the investigation, Interpol finally located Dr. Vincent. He was in Manila, Philippines, staying in a luxury hotel in the Makami district under a false identity, living under the name John Chris, American passport that looked legitimate but was flagged by facial recognition software at the airport. Philippine National Police, working with the FBI, raided his hotel room at 3:17 a.m. on July 14, 2023. Dr. Vincent tried to run, made it to the stairwell before officers tackled him. He fought, screamed, claimed they had the wrong person. When they searched his room, they found $240,000 in cash, multiple fake passports from different countries, and a laptop. The laptop was the breakthrough everyone had been waiting for. It contained the complete database: names, photos, addresses, tracking data, and medical records for all 89 women who'd been implanted. It also contained correspondence with 12 buyers across 6 countries, including negotiations, payments, and, in some cases, confirmation of successful acquisitions. Agent Scott reviewed the files with a grim expression. The 41 missing women. Here was confirmation of what had happened to them. Sold and shipped to wealthy buyers in Dubai, Moscow, Hong Kong, and Sao Paulo. Some had been purchased for private collections, modern-day slavery, hidden behind walls of wealth and power. Others had been resold into larger trafficking networks. But here's what chilled Scott to her core. Dr. Vincent had messages discussing 14 specific women he was currently monitoring with highest potential value. It was Mary and the 13 others. They'd been saved just in time. Buyers were already negotiating prices. Acquisition teams were already being assembled. Travel documents were being forged. If Mary hadn't felt that strange vibration, if she hadn't trusted her instincts, if they'd waited even 2 more weeks, she would have been gone. Just another missing person with no witnesses, no evidence, no explanation. According to police reports, Dr. Vincent was held in a detention facility in Manila awaiting extradition. He refused to speak without a lawyer, claimed he was being framed, insisted the laptop wasn't his.
But forensic analysis proved otherwise. His fingerprints were all over the device. His login credentials accessed it regularly. His email accounts sent and received the messages. There was no escaping this. Dr. Vincent McCarthy was extradited to the United States on August 3, 2023. He arrived at LAX in handcuffs, flanked by federal marshals. Media cameras captured him being led through the airport. He kept his head down, wouldn't look at anyone. The man who'd once walked confidently through hospital corridors, who'd smiled warmly at patients, who'd built a reputation as one of the best surgeons in Beverly Hills, was now just another criminal being marched toward justice. He was taken directly to the Metropolitan Detention Center in downtown Los Angeles, held without bail. The charges were extensive. Over 200 federal counts: conspiracy, human trafficking, aggravated identity theft, wire fraud, unlawful implantation of tracking devices, violations of medical ethics. He faced life in prison. Multiple life sentences, actually. For 3 days, he sat in his cell and said nothing. His attorney advised him to stay silent, to fight every charge, to claim he was being railroaded. But the evidence was overwhelming. The devices, the tracking data, the communications, the Bitcoin transactions, the laptop with its damning database. There was no defense that could explain this away. On August 6th, Dr. Vincent's attorney approached the prosecution with an offer. His client would cooperate fully, would provide information on the entire network, would testify against the other medical professionals involved. In exchange, he wanted the death penalty taken off the table. The prosecution agreed. They wanted the network dismantled more than they wanted one man's execution. What followed was 3 days of recorded interviews. Agent Scott sat across from Dr. Vincent in a small interrogation room,
listening to him explain how he'd become a monster. He spoke in a flat, emotionless voice, like he was describing a business venture rather than the destruction of human lives. He said it started small, 5 years ago, a patient who'd fallen behind on payments. He joked with a colleague about how she was worth more than she owed. The colleague had laughed and said he knew people who'd pay serious money for information on women like her. One introduction led to another. Small payments at first, just addresses, then routines. Then someone approached him about the trackers. Could he implant them during surgery? The money was substantial. $50,000 per successfully tracked woman. He told himself they were just gathering data. He told himself he wasn't actually hurting anyone. Never physically abducted anyone himself, just provided information. Scott stared at him across the table, asked him if he understood what he'd done. He said he did, said he knew what he was. Scott told him to explain it then, put it in words. He looked up and for the first time showed something resembling emotion. Shame, maybe, or just exhaustion. He said, "I'm a predator who used his medical license as a hunting license. I violated every oath I ever took. I destroyed lives for money. I'm exactly what you think I am." According to court transcripts, he provided detailed information on the other 11 medical professionals. Names, locations, methods. He explained how the network operated, how buyers placed orders, how profiles were built and sold. He identified 7 buyers by name, though only 3 were in countries with extradition treaties. Over the following months, all 11 other medical professionals were arrested. The network was systematically dismantled, but the damage had been done. 41 women were still missing, and the chances of finding them decreased with every passing day. Dr. Vincent McCarthy's trial began on November 8, 2023. He pled guilty to all charges. His attorney had advised against going to trial. The evidence was too strong. The jury would have shown no mercy. The sentencing phase lasted 2 weeks. Prosecutors presented the full scope of his crimes, detailed every victim, showed the tracking data, played recordings of his confession. Then came the victim impact statements. 14 women stood before the court and described what Dr. Vincent had done to them, not just physically, emotionally, psychologically. One woman said she couldn't be alone anymore, couldn't walk to her car without looking over her shoulder, couldn't trust any doctor, any man, anyone. Another said she'd had the beautiful surgical results reversed by a different surgeon. She'd rather have the excess skin back than carry his work on her body. She'd rather look the way she did before than see his touch in the mirror every day.
A third said she'd moved 3 times since her tracker was removed, changed her name, deleted all social media, became a ghost because she didn't know if the person who'd bought her information was still looking. Mary's statement was the most powerful. She stood at the podium, hands gripping the edges, and spoke in a steady voice that didn't waver. She said, "Dr. Vincent didn't just implant a device in my body. He implanted fear that will never leave. Every stranger I pass on the street, I wonder if they have my information. Every time I'm alone, I wonder if someone is watching. He took away my sense of safety in the world, not just in medical settings, everywhere." She paused, looked directly at him. "I mourned the person I was before I met you. The person who trusted doctors, who believed in expertise and credentials, who thought if you did your research and asked the right questions, you'd be safe. That person is gone. You killed her the moment you put that tracker inside me." She took a breath. "Some people say you deserve a second chance, that everyone can be rehabilitated, but I don't believe that. Not for you. Because you didn't make one mistake. You made 89 deliberate choices. You violated 89 women. You sold 41 of them into slavery. And you would have kept going if I hadn't felt that vibration. She leaned forward. You don't get to call yourself a doctor anymore. Doctors heal. You hunted. And I hope every day you spend in prison, you remember every single face of every woman whose life you destroyed. The courtroom was silent when she finished. Dr. Vincent sat at the defense table, staring at his hands. He didn't look up, didn't react, just sat there like a man who'd already accepted his fate. On November 22nd, 2023, he was sentenced to 45 years in federal prison without possibility of parole. He would die behind bars. He was 53 years old. He'd be 98 if he ever saw freedom again. His medical license was permanently revoked. His assets were seized and divided among the victims as restitution. His wife divorced him and changed her name and the children's names. His family wanted nothing to do with him. The other medical professionals received sentences ranging from 15 to 35 years. The network was dismantled. The buyers who could be reached were prosecuted.
But the 41 missing women remained missing. The FBI continued searching. Interpol kept the case active. But with each passing month, hope faded. Some of those women were still out there, still held, still waiting for rescue that might never come. And that's the part that haunts everyone who worked this case. They saved 14, but they lost 41. What do you call that? Success? Failure? Justice? Agent Scott doesn't know. She still works trafficking cases, still searches for the missing. But she thinks about Mary's case every single day, because it proved something terrifying, that monsters don't always hide in the shadows. Sometimes they wear white coats and have perfect credentials and make you feel safe right up until the moment they destroy you.
For Mary and the 13 other women, the spotlight was torture. Their faces were everywhere, their stories dissected by strangers. Privacy became impossible. Some of the victims embraced it. Others disappeared completely, changed their names, moved to different states, deleted every trace of their former lives. Mary fell somewhere in between. She stayed in Los Angeles but moved to a different neighborhood, kept working as a pediatric nurse but transferred to a different hospital. She saw therapists twice a week, attended support group meetings with the other victims. The physical scar from the tracker removal healed within months. The psychological scars never did. She couldn't date, couldn't trust men who stood too close, couldn't walk into a medical facility without her heart racing. 3 of the 14 women attempted suicide in the 2 years following the trial. All 3 survived, but the statistics spoke to the depth of the trauma. This was supposed to be a story about transformation, about a woman who worked hard, saved money, and finally got to feel good about herself. Instead, it became a story about violation, about trust weaponized, about how the people who are supposed to heal us can sometimes be the ones who hurt us most.
The house in Beverly Hills where Dr. Vincent once lived stands empty now. The bank foreclosed. No one wants to buy it. It sits there with curtains drawn, pool filled with algae, a monument to a perfect life that was always a lie. His wife, Diane, moved to Oregon with the 3 kids. She changed their last name to her maiden name, started therapy, got a job at a school as an administrative assistant. The kids are in therapy too, trying to process what their father was, trying to understand how someone they loved could be capable of such evil. There are no easy answers.
But here's what most people don't know. Here's what the media never reported. Here's the detail that still keeps Agent Scott up at night. In January 2025, 18 months after Dr. Vincent was sentenced, one of those tracking signals came back online. A woman named Natalie Carmichael.
She'd had surgery with Dr. Vincent 4 years earlier, in June 2021. She disappeared 3 months after her procedure, in September of that year. Her family had filed a missing persons report. The case went cold. Her tracker had stopped transmitting in October 2021. Everyone assumed she was dead. But on January 8, 2025, her signal pinged. A location outside Dubai. A residential compound in a wealthy district. Local authorities raided the location, found Natalie alive. She'd been held captive for 3.5 years. Her rescue led to the discovery of 7 more women from the network, all alive, all held in various locations across the Middle East and Eastern Europe. They're home now, physically safe, but psychologically shattered. The FBI believes there are still 34 women out there somewhere, 34 victims of Dr. Vincent's network who haven't been found. They're still looking. Interpol keeps the case active, but with each passing month, the chances decrease. And here's the truly disturbing final detail that emerged during a supplementary investigation in March 2025. Dr. Vincent kept a journal, hidden in an encrypted file on a backup drive they found in his storage unit. In it, he'd written about his selection process, about how he specifically targeted women who reminded him of his mother. Successful, independent, strong-willed women who, in his words, needed to be humbled and controlled. This wasn't just for money. It was for power. About hatred of women disguised as healing. A surgeon who devoted his career to perfecting women's bodies was simultaneously destroying their lives.
If you made it through this entire story, I want you to think about something. How many women do you know who've had plastic surgery? How many times have they mentioned feeling strange sensations afterward? How many times have we dismissed those concerns as paranoia or anxiety? What if we'd listened sooner? How many women could have been saved? Was justice served? Dr. Vincent got 45 years, but 41 women are still gone. Is that justice, or is that just the best we could do? Let me know in the comments what you think, and if you or someone you know has experienced anything similar, report it immediately. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Some monsters wear scrubs and call themselves doctors. And that's the most terrifying thing of all. Because the next time you lie on an operating table, the next time you trust someone with your body, how can you ever really know?